Good evening, good people. How are we doing today? My name is Dilys and I am your host for the evening on Speak with Dilys. Excuse me. I hope you are going to have a great time this evening, but before I go into all of that, let me introduce myself to you for those of you that don't know me, or for those of you that are going to catch us on the replay. At least you'd like to know who you have been watching. So as you join, please do share the link and I shall tell you a little bit about that. As to why that's so important today. But before I go into all of that lovely juicy stuff, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Dilys and I am the host of Speak with Dilys. It's a show that I put together because I felt that it was really important for us to be able to have conversations that would sometimes be either uncomfortable or very sensitive, that we aren't normally having and should be having. I'll just turn this off. And so therefore, Speak with Dilys was created. We've had so many shows. We are on our 6th series. Hi, Emily, how you doing? And yeah, it's been great. We have spoken about everything and anything. I am a best-selling author of the book, Not This Widow. I'm also the author of the book, Predator or Prince, How to Find the Man of Your Dreams, Not Your Nightmares. Now, both these books can be found on Amazon, but I'm going to tell you where else you can buy my books as well. Hello, Anita, how you doing? So I will show you where else you can purchase my books. I am also an events host. I'm an MC. I am a minister at New Glory Ministries. I am an accredited and qualified life coach. So no, I am not one of these people that studied for $7 on a Friday and Saturday and call myself a life coach, because I know there are many of those. And what else do? I do a lot of things. Sometimes I can't even remember how many things I actually do, but I do a lot of things. Thank you, Missy, for sharing. Okay, so let me tell you what's happening tonight. Hello, Beverly. How are you doing? Lovely to have you on here. Have not seen you for a while. Guys, as you join, please do share. Now, I have just come out of Facebook jail. I'm still kind of on probation because Facebook have informed me that for the next 28 days, my account is going to be restricted. Now, of course, I didn't commit to any terrible offense. I was just a little bit misunderstood. And unfortunately, Facebook only seem to restrict certain people's accounts. I will not even go into all of that, but it's not paranoia. It's not a paranoia. I can assure you that I absolutely was unjustifiably put in Facebook jail. So what they've said is I cannot, my content is going to be restricted for the next month. So a lot of you are not going to actually see many things that I post on my wall, especially my lives. So there you go. So as you join, please do share. I have a wonderful guest tonight who I can see is having a little bit of trouble coming on. They will need to connect their mic cam before you can add them to the stream. Okay, so I don't know if you can hear me. You need to connect your mic / cam before I can add you to the stream. So I'm sure she'll be able to do that. Guys, it's so lovely to see you joining. I'm so sorry that last week there was no Speak with Dilys, but I'm back today. So you know what? You know I'll come with the goods. You've got a double show tonight. It's going to be lovely, fine and dandy. So whilst I'm getting my guests ready, my week so far. Well, as I said, I was in Facebook jail. All it was basically somebody was watching, somebody had put up a video. And you know, they do these kind of little pranky things. It's getting a bit old now, but they do these pranks on the street. And there was one where this guy, pretended to be blind, pulled out his white stick, and this other guy saw him and basically ran off. And when he ran off, someone said, well, of course he's gonna, because the guy ran off and left his bag, like he ran off screaming. And the comment that I responded to and got banned for, the person said, well, of course he's going to run off. The guy's black. He thought he was going to get mugged. That's what was said. So I responded and I said, well, that's just ridiculous. That's the stupidest saying, because somebody's got a backpack on and they look Muslim, that they're going to blast people to smithereens. I said, you don't really realize that that's racist. Yours truly got banned. It is what it is. So yes, that's why I was in Facebook jail. But it's okay. I'm a big girl. So I'm going to rely on you guys to share the content, as Facebook have nicely informed me that I cannot post to groups and some other stuff, and that my content will be moved lower down the chain for the next 28 days. So that is why some of you may not be seeing my content unless I tag you. So it is what it is. But you know what? You can't keep a good woman down. No, you can't keep a good woman down. It is what it is. So, guys, welcome to another episode of Speak with Dilys. Actually, welcome to two. So, I'm going to tell you tonight what we are going to be speaking about and who my wonderful guest is. So those of you that didn't see the write-up, I'm going to read it to you real quick now. Daniela Bleckner, the founder of Conscious Dreams Publishing and best-selling author of the book Mr. Wrong, one of 8 books she has written. As a book journey mentor, or the book journey mentor, I stand corrected, having helped over 200 authors publish their stories, including my own, Daniela hadn't quite articulated her story. Born to a Jewish father and Jamaican mother, there were many societal boxes presented to her, but Daniela refused to be placed in any of them. Daniela discovered this year that she had been living with an undiagnosed condition that had always made her feel different, but didn't know why. Her sensitivity to sound, the need for tranquility and time to process life differently from others, only now making sense, giving her the final piece to the puzzle. Her identity now secured and living her authentic life. I am excited, and trust me, I am excited, to welcome Daniela Bleckner on this special edition of Speak with Dilys, episode 9 and 10, called Once Upon a Time. So I'm just going to add you now, Danny. Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
Are you?
I'm good, thank you. Oh, my voice is going.
Excellent. Your sound is fantastic.
Excellent.
So that's great.
Oh, I'm pleased to hear that. Let me sort my camera out. There you go.
Brilliant. So I am going onto my Facebook page on my phone. So if you see me looking here, it's not that I'm being rude. It's only because I do need to see some comments. Right. So let me mute this. Okay, we're muted now. So guys, as you have joined, let me just say hello to a few of you. Faye Clinton, thank you for joining and thank you for sharing. Good evening, Nadia. How are you doing? Monica, who has shared to her group, Live the Life You Love. Thank you so much. And I can be, good evening, Dilys, tuning in from Dallas, Texas. Excellent. Guys, do let me know where you're watching from, because it's always nice to know that you're not all in this wonderful country that's just so cold and wet and miserable this time of the year. Zilla, how are you doing, my love? I was in school with Zilla. I've known Zilla since I was 10 years old. So that's only 15 years. Barbara, how are you doing? Hi, Beverly, once again, Anya, Missy, and Anita. Guys, as you have joined, please do share. Let us have a wider conversation. Nadia is watching from Trinidad and Tobago. Lovely, a place that I would most definitely like to visit one of these days. But let me welcome my wonderful guest. I call you Danny because reading Daniela, it was actually doing my head in. So Danny, how you doing? Because that's what I call you. You good?
Oh, good. Thank you, Dilys. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. You know, we've been friends for how long now? At least 4 years.
Forever.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And I think why I was so interested and excited to have you on the show was I always seem to see you presented in a very one-dimensional way. It's always about publishing. It's always about books. But yeah, there's so much more to you. And, you know, as I've gotten to know you in a completely different capacity. I don't want to talk too much. I want you to introduce yourself. I think I've said enough. But for people that are seeing you for the first time, who is Danny?
I don't know. Let's crack on. No, I'll do my standard intro. My name is Daniela, or Danny Bleckner, author, book journey mentor, founder of Conscious Dreams Publishing. And I love that you're interviewing me on a different angle today in terms of looking into who I am as a person. Obviously, as you know, and we've spoken about, I've been recently diagnosed as being on the ASD spectrum with a touch of ADHD and dyspraxia. So I'm looking forward to just cracking in and seeing where this interview goes.
You see, for me, I guess I have conversations, not interviews. Do you know what I mean? Because I like things to be very authentic. And I think from the little that I learned, I think maybe it might be helpful for people to know what that condition is. So if you can explain what the condition is, and how it's supposed to affect you, and then at least everybody, then we're all on the same page.
That's such a wide question because I could just chat on for ages. So I've been diagnosed with Asperger's, which is you're not supposed to say Asperger's anymore. It's named after a Nazi. And so now we just say, and also it separates a kind of, it used to be Asperger's, high functioning, and then, you know, people who are deemed as autistic, low functioning. And to me, that I've got an issue with that anyway. What is low functioning? What's high functioning? What does that mean? And the whole thing of it being a disorder, I think I want to change the stereotypes in terms of it being a condition and a way of processing things as opposed to a disorder. So, I mean, it's such a wide spectrum. It's about, you know, thought process, the way you process things. ADHD stands for attention deficit hyperactivity, again, disorder, which I'd like to change the condition. And dyspraxia is more about your sort of motor neuron. It used to be dubbed the clumsy, you know, disorder, but it's not. It's so much. There's so much more to that. So it's hard to really define all of those in such a quick answer. So
it don't have to be quick. We got a couple of hours, girl.
Well, you know.
But I hear what you're saying. I think even from what you've mentioned just now, they are all negatives. That's how society has portrayed them. Oh, you've got ADHD. Oh, you've got Asperger's. There is an automatic picture that I personally feel is painted with those labels attached to people. I think where I feel that you are blessed and it's a blessing for, or should be a blessing for many people, is that diagnosis, maybe it didn't help you, but it came after the fact. And I think to a degree that has its advantage, because I personally feel from what I see today, where we are quick in being able to diagnose children, but we're also quick to label. And from being quick to label, we're quick to limit.
100%.
And from being quick to limit, we're quick to cancel and say, you can only do. And here I am looking at a very attractive lady.
Oh, thank you very much. I made an effort today.
Well, you know what? Just don't tell them what I call you in inbox.
Yeah, we'll keep it. We'll keep it private.
I'm being really honest here. Very attractive lady who has accomplished so much. Had those titles been placed on you, I mean, I'm not God, but I do feel that it would have been very unlikely that you could have achieved so much. What do you think?
It's a big question because I think it's about breaking. It's almost like exchanging one label for 20 others. You know, growing up, I'll just chuck out a couple, right? And it took me a while to be able to disidentify with these labels. Messy. My house is pristine, right? But my handwriting was always messy. It was untidy because my mind runs so much faster. I'm writing. I've got so many ideas, and my ideas are coming quicker than my writing, so it's messy, right? So I could write the most amazing. I remember once being at school and being asked to write, use these 4 boxes and write, piece of writing for each box. And there was limitations. It was like 6 lines for each one. And I've got the book here somewhere. I was about 8 years old. I had 20 pictures, beautifully illustrated, and I had like 30 pieces of writing here because to me the instructions didn't sink in. It's like, I've got a story and I want to write it down. And it was messy to the teachers, but the ideas, when I read it back as a teacher myself now, I thought, oh my gosh, wow, what I've written, not blowing my own trumpet, I'm blowing my 8-year-old self's trumpet here.
Absolutely.
What I did at that time was blooming a great, amazing story. But at the end of it was like, oh, very interesting, untidy. And as a teacher myself, I always make sure, I was able to diagnose myself before the diagnosis came because I worked as a TA, started in 2007. We didn't have these labels. We didn't have, Asperger's, ASD, ADHD, dyspraxia. That didn't exist in the 80s growing up. You were just told you were disorganized, messy, chaotic, clumsy, a big one, ham-fisted, all of these labels,
Yeah.
disruptive, not fitting into the norm, crazy, weird, oddball, all of these things. And you start to associate yourself with these labels and you play up to them a little bit. The questions that you ask that are outside the box, which actually come from a very deep level, are seen as silly questions. And when people laugh, the teachers included, you start to create this persona of a class clown, which attracts a great sense of popularity. But then you're kind of left to feeling a bit isolated and thinking, I actually had a real sense of meaning and purpose behind that question. Had I been given the chance to really explain what I meant, I would have been able to have a really interesting discourse with the teacher or other students in there, and actually arrive at a really decent debate. But it wasn't given that airtime. And so when I work with young people now and they ask questions that are seemingly silly or left field or out the box, I really cherish the sense of asking, oh, well, why did you ask that question? Going deeper into that and getting into their thought process. And it evokes such an interesting debate. And I think that maybe teachers didn't have that patience or understanding or the insight to be able to give pupils like myself that time to be able to explore that. And so you adapt a persona of like, oh yeah, I was messing about, oh yeah, it was funny, wearing a mask. And there's a real sense of danger in that, because you start to break off pieces of yourself and give yourself limitations in terms of being able to not go as deep into your thought processes and ideas as you really should be allowed to.
But I think the one thing that you've said, and maybe I have a slight difference of opinion, though I agree at the same time, where you're saying that, maybe the teachers back in the day weren't equipped to be able to do X, Y, or Z. But you see, the one thing that we are all equipped with is compassion if we want to use it. And if you are a compassionate person and you go into the field of teaching because you love children or because you love to teach, then there is a certain attitude that comes with the job. So, for example, when I see nurses that are really horrible, like when I had my son, the matron on duty was demonic. I mean, I actually said when I was leaving, I said to her that you've got no business, dealing with live people. You should be an undertaker. And I had to tell her because she was awful.
You saw it all on the spectrum as well. It's the kind of thing I would say.
Oh, listen, I'll tell you some of how I behave. You can tell me on a serious note.
Yeah.
And I was like, why do some of us, like, I love people. So working as a coach, I will always go beyond my call of duty because it's important that you win. So even though you may not fit into a box, like for example, I had a married couple that I was coaching and actually had them in my home. Now I was traveling and I didn't have the time for it, but it was, their case to me was so important that I thought I have to help. So I think where we should never forget the most important reason for our professions is that area of compassion. Because you can't write that in a job description. You have to be that. And if some of our teachers were able to do that, then we wouldn't have a problem.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. And I think that sense of compassion, sometimes the school system or teachers are on such a thin line of, okay, even with questioning, it's like premeditated. I'm going to ask this question and I want this answer. And so everything, my questioning needs to lead to this answer.
Yeah.
Anything that's leading off of that is kind of taking me away from my job as a teacher to get onto this. And obviously, lessons for me are 50 minutes, 100 minutes. You got to give it. You can't be going off on 20 million different tangents. But I think it's that sense of compassion and understanding and making children feel like, and I always say there's no such thing as a silly question.
Yeah.
Unless you've said 10 times, 10 to page 10, and the kid said on the 11th time you've said it, what page should I be on? Do you know what I mean?
We said that, but even then, unless the child is trying to be intentionally disruptive, even that tells you something about the child. The thing is, when it comes to children, they always tell a story.
Yeah.
Every child tells a story. There is no child who is exhibiting certain behaviors that is not trying to tell the adults something, whether they're being obnoxious, whether they are being rude, whether being, uncooperative, whatever it is, that child is trying to tell you something, is whether we care to listen and make it our business. And I understand you, as a teacher, you may not have, even as a parent, you may not have that time to exclusively deal with whatever issue they may have. But again, that C word comes in, and not the usual one we throw on the street, but compassion. Do you know what I mean? I said I'd behave myself tonight. But do you know what I mean? You have to be compassionate.
Yeah.
Oh, Danny, that sounds like a really good question, but we don't have time today. Maybe I'll find time and see if we can. But we've only got 20 minutes, so that's all it takes.
About the end of the lesson.
That's all it takes. But I feel it's only as I'm talking to them, I'm thinking, had someone said, and actually this just dropped in my spirit, had someone said, oh, there's a really good publishing company, but the lady's got Asperger's, bam, done. I'm looking for a next publisher. I'm being honest with you, because the image has been so negative, and we are so uneducated about these things that they're cancelling people. But, look at what I would have missed.
There you go.
There's
some beautiful things about it. I mean, there's so many different aspects of being on this spectrum as well. For me, back in when I was young, there was lots of different pressures, as a completely different person as a kid. So people who knew me from 30 years ago, I've got a lot of friends who I knew like from 30 years plus, 27, 35 years now. And when I got my diagnosis, they were like, yeah, we knew. I knew from a very young age there was something. And I certainly knew when I was about, I think, 20. I went to my mum's house and I was reading this book and I was reading all these things. I was like, oh my gosh, wow, I feel like I'm reading about me. It's called Dyspraxia. And I said to my mum, what is this book? Where did you get this from? And she said, oh yeah, I got it years ago. I thought there was something wrong with you. And I was like, oh, right, great. But what I want to say is that because there wasn't these labels out there, you're existing in this neurotypical world and you have to adapt to it. And you've got your own world. And because there wasn't this label, there wasn't that compassion, you find ways of managing. And it wasn't until I got my diagnosis that I realized, oh my gosh, throughout my whole life, I've had this other skill of managing with all these different aspects. But when it comes to something that you're highly interested in, so for me, it's books, learning about the publishing industry. They say when you have, when you're Asperger's or on the spectrum, you have certain things that you're very interested in. So when I was young, it was animals, it was birds, it was nature. I could reel off statistics. I could reel off all this information. How many eggs, robins lay, what color they are, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff, when they mate. And it became the same with books. I realized there was a gap in the market. I tried to publish my own book. I've always loved writing. That was my gift. That's something I love doing. And through rejection, I realized that, I learned about the self-publishing process myself. And when I say learn, it wasn't just a couple of Google searches. It was like intensely teaching and learning and just getting so much information about the best ways, the best routes, the best people, the best ways to typeset, the graphic design, everything that's involved in it. And when I had my diagnosis, the lady said to me, wow, your brain is so interesting. You found a problem, which was when I published myself, I had so many, mainly at the time, women who weren't feeling heard in terms of in the publishing industry, mainstream, not getting their books out there, not knowing how to publish. And she said, you helped them. You did this as a labor of love. And then you turned it into a business rather than having a business to make money and think, what can I do to make money? You saw a problem, tried to fix it, and then almost became obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Look at my shelf. I've got 160 authors' books on my shelf.
I'm looking to see where mine is.
Yeah, it's there. So every single author has got their own filing system, you know. When I was at school, you thought I would know about filing system? I couldn't even remember to hand in my homework. It's because I wasn't interested. Do you know,
Yeah.
you see what I mean? When there's something that you are intensely interested in, it's almost like you go in the completely other direction of like intense organization, you know? But then you ask me, have you got your homework? Do you know what lessons you have? No, I don't. I followed every I had like 20 PAs at school delegating. And they knew to say to me, Danny, you've got PE next. Oh, brilliant. Have you got a PE kit? Oh, no, shit, I haven't. Because I just could not remember to do those things. You know what I mean? But when you find something that you're intensely passionate about, you find a way, you make a way. And what is seen as a lack becomes an intense skill.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people who I went to school with look at me now and like, wow, I can't believe that you're doing all of this. And you're so bloody organized with it.
The thing is, you do a lot, and I think what I'm hearing again is, as a parent, because that's where you missed out. You didn't have that diagnosis, and I can't actually no. Let me take that back. I can't say you missed out because depending on how your parents may have thought, that information could have worked to your detriment. It may have done. Who knows? So we can't say, I guess, in hindsight, what it would have been. But what I'm hearing now is, if you are a parent, or you're not yet a parent and you intend to be a parent, and you have a child that doesn't seem to be interested in one thing, but they're interested in another, explore that and give them that space and see where it takes them. Because, I mean, as a kid, I don't know. There were certain things that I would do, and I questioned why I would do it. Like, I would walk up the stairs and I would count the steps all the time. I did that as a kid from as far back as I can remember. And I would be able, even when I was driving on certain roads, I would memorize where every dip. It's very weird. But I've always known I was a bit weird. I don't know. I just don't have, the only diagnosis I have is just weirdo. I don't have anything, I have nothing scientific. And I'm very much a stickler for instruction. If you say, Dilys, this cup of coffee, it's got to be with the coaster underneath, and it must be 3/4 full, guarantee that is exactly what I will bring to you. I will not bring you a saucer. I will not put I will give you exactly. And I have questioned myself at times, I can be a little bit obsessive. And, the other thing that I find quite interesting, when you mentioned about being in class and you're being asked one question and you're so my dad will ask me a question and say, I want an answer in regards to this. And I will give every eventuality. He said, you're just a politician. I said, I'm not a politician. For me, I am exploring. I can't just give you one answer if in my brain there's 10 answers.
Mm-hmm. And it depends how the person is asking the questions. Again, I'm a wordsmith. Words are important.
Very important. Thank you. I say this all the time.
Thank you. People get really annoyed. It's like, I just want a yes or no answer. It's like, hold on, but I need to go back a step. Can you explain to me when you say, and I don't want to get into it, but like, I need things very, very clear. I'm a very straight person, talking person. I'm intentional when I speak. The words I use have intention and purpose behind them. So if people ask questions and they're ambiguous, and they don't make sense, I always go back and say, okay, when you say this, before I answer the question, when you say this, can you explain really clearly what you mean so I can answer in a very clear way directly to what you're saying? Because otherwise, I'm just guessing what you're asking.
And I don't feel like exactly.
Very important. Very. And so that's when I work with kids, I am so clear. Listen, I'm a very visual person. I cannot sit and listen to somebody talk for an hour, 2 hours. At school, the lessons that I loved, English, history, were things where we could sit and work in groups and work things out for ourselves. And we've got visuals and we've got things we can work off. I did my A levels and I loved English. And I'm so
Yeah.
sorry to say, uh, the teacher who I can't remember her name, so it doesn't really matter anyway. But the teacher who was doing the English literature, I dropped out twice.
Oh,
Number
wow.
one, her voice was extremely boring. So
Oh,
like
yeah.
intonation and tone is so important.
Yeah.
It was the same monotone, and there wasn't a chance to think. It was just talking at you, and I can't take in information that way. And it's highly, no matter how much you love a subject, it that's dead for me now. It becomes irrelevant and horrible because you can't take in that information. And now I've forgotten completely what it was that I was going to say, because you said something that related to what I was saying about
But
instruction.
it's so funny, Danny, because I listened to you for the first time, and it's like listening to myself. That's quite scary.
Well,
It is, considering some of the conversations we have behind closed doors. But on a serious note,
yeah.
I think, I don't know what your love language is, but I think for people who think in this way, where words are so important, if your love language is words of affirmation, then it's a double bloody whammy, really.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's my
and for me, words of affirmation was like a 12. The rest were just, words were so important. So if you, just like yourself, you ask me a question, you have to be crystal clear, because I'm thinking, but yes, it could also mean.
Yeah. This is it. I now remember what I was saying. So with the words, when I have PowerPoints, even with presentations or speaking gigs, or it's definitely teaching young people, I always have images to back up what I'm saying. If you have any ambiguity about what I'm saying, you have an image there. We can discuss the image. And we have the instructions on the board, a visual, and then because it gets in your mind then, because when you're talking, kids are not, they're going to remember, I can't remember the statistics, but when any brain, when you listen to something, you only take in a certain amount verbally, and you're taking a huger amount visually. And then with videos, it's even wider. So I try and use all of those aspects in the classroom. And kinesthetic learning is really important as well. Like for me, I learn by doing. So if I'm sitting and someone's telling me about their experience, or they're talking, let's say science, and they're telling you about this like scientific experiment that's done, halfway through my mind switches off and starts becoming distracted.
Sorry about this.
Okay. I can hear myself there. And I'm thinking about something they said 5 minutes ago, and they've lost me completely. Then I get to the end and I'm like, oh my God, I cannot tell you what they've said. And then I'm relying on my PA number 2 over here to tell me what the heck's going on and what the answer is, because I'm totally lost. Whereas if you say, right, very quickly, we're going to test this. What do you think the outcome might be? Okay, here you go. Here's this, here's that. Mix them together. Tell me what you get, because you're doing it yourself, and you remember by doing.
Of course.
And you remember by seeing, and you remember by experiencing. And then the verbiage, the verbal stuff, is just the affirmation of what you've already done. You see what I'm saying? So when I'm teaching, I try and do it that way, rather than, they say, don't be the sage on the stage, be a guide on the side. And that is my motto when I teach. And whenever I've got PowerPoints with like, text on whatever, I always say to the kids, do you know what? I'm bored of my voice. I'm sick of hearing myself speak. Who wants to read? Read that. Because I know then when they read it, they're more likely to take it in. Or when their peers are reading it, the others are more likely to take it in. They don't want to hear someone talk for hours. It's boring.
No. And I think what I'm observing is you seem more normal than normal people. To me, this
I
is
didn't want to say.
No, but to be honest with you, to me, this is more normal, more sensible, is more likely to get the results that we would want in a child. The method being used is far more kinder. So for me, this is normal, but hey, let me just go and read some of the comments that we have. I have a few. Anita shared, thank you very much for sharing. Evelyn, how are you doing? Said, good evening, Dilys, watching you from Ealing, West London. Lovely jubbly. Patience is watching from Ghana. Now, Patience has a wonderful school called Fountain of Youth International School, of which I am a patron. So one of the things that I do that sometimes, I do so many things that I have to be reminded. But it's an absolutely beautiful school. So yes, that's Patience's school in Ghana. She is watching. Anita says, 2 wonderful women speak. Thank you so much.
Hey.
Monica says, so sad they're all labels. We're all individuals with different abilities, not disabilities. I love that. Different abilities, not disabilities. I so agree with that. Shirley says, hi, Dilys. It's Shirley from Monroe. How are you doing, my love? Lovely to have you on here. Louisa, how are you doing? You're looking fantastic. I have to say, looking amazing. You look so peaceful and so happy. It's lovely to have you on here today. So the equipment with compassion, indeed. Shirley Ann says, I have met some nurses from hell. I think, yeah, when I was making that comment about when I had my son, she was a witch, that woman. Barbara, another person that I was in school with that I've known from the age of 10. We should probably have a Chimota prep school reunion. She says, so true. Compassion is key. Shirley, thank you for sharing. And Mimi Mensa, good evening to you as well. And whilst I have just finished reading the comments, if you have not shared, please do. And also, if you're watching on Facebook, there's this little thing called stars. If you like the content that you are watching and you would like to support what I do in any way, please do send some stars. It is a monetary support for content makers such as myself, such as yours truly. It helps me to pay for this little thing called StreamYard, which ain't cheap. I swear they've increased the price.
They have.
The buggers. So yeah, it is expensive doing social media, and you know, when your account's being restricted, you're having to swallow that cost as well, because like they've said to me, for 28 days you can't post because whatever. So yeah, so if you do see the stars, please, you can give anything as little as 89p, but it's something, it just gives me that encouragement to know that what I'm giving is of value and it's appreciated. So thank you very much. So back to the show.
Love your glasses, Dilys. We should talk about that.
Thank you so much. Well, let me tell you a little story about my glasses. All it is I don't get a lot of sleep. I have serious back issues. I have a lot of weight to carry. I've got a very small waist and I got a lot of load. Actually, people think I'm joking, but it's true, you know. Just like how women with big bazookas, it does give them backache.
I would say.
It's the same when you're, you know, you get me. But aside from that, I have a new mattress that's less than 2 years old, and it is killing me softly. I swear there are people in the mattress that poke my back at night so that I can't sleep. And I have not had a good night's sleep.
Did you just use a Fugees lyric about your mattress?
What did I just say? Oh, killing me softly. Yeah, I did actually. But they are. So these glasses basically are just to hide my tired eyes.
Oh.
Do you like them?
They're lovely. I love them. I might get some myself.
You know what it was? They were the wrong color. What I ordered was a matte color, and I ended up with these. So they've been in the box for like 2 weeks, and I thought, should I send them back? And then I thought, well, I've had 3 hours sleep and I look shattered, so let me just hide my eyes with these. And everyone seemed to like them, so thank you so much, Danny. Thank you, darling. That's very nice of you. You know, when you really appreciate a compliment, you have to put on Ghanaian accent. It makes it far more, it has a lot more vim, you know. You know, I'm a little crazy. Yeah. We can't, you can never be too serious. It doesn't matter what we're talking about on the show.
Exactly. So look, double stars so Dilys can get a mattress.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yes, can I have some stars so I can go to Dreams and get a mattress? I've seen one for about £600. Gosh, I refurbed my house, you know, threw everything out, bed, everything. The bed broke twice because Madam here, I came back from Ghana one day, didn't tell me that she'd broken my bed. I come back to, I was fuming. I look at my bed and half of it's, I'm like, what did you do on the bed? Oh, and I just sat down. I'm like, you're not an elephant. Don't tell me just sat down. Do you understand? I'm not as I say, you're not a hippopotamus. Just buruf. Also, I had to get that fixed. And, you know, it just cost me so much money because it was brand new. So there you go. It is what it is. But anyway, I'm very territorial. I don't like anyone in my space. Like if I put something here, don't touch it. Yeah? If you like your life, don't touch it. So I
door locked, everything, yes.
Yeah, I did. I actually got a lock on my door.
Good.
I did. I know. Everyone said it was really extreme, but I don't think people realize if you touch something that belongs to me, I'm like,
I hear you.
Do you think I need to go and get myself tested?
We can talk off camera if you want.
No, I think it wouldn't surprise me. Just some of the things that you're saying, like the other thing that I would like you to talk about is your sensitivity to noise. Because I said to you, oh yeah, I'm exactly the same. So in the mornings, I can't take noise at all.
That noise. Yeah, it's weird. I think it's definitely got a lot worse as I've got older. I don't say worse, but it's got a lot more pronounced as I've got older. I just like quiet. I just like no noise at all. Especially in the morning, I can't bear. We've spoken about this as well. Like I haven't watched TV. I don't have a TV. I haven't watched TV for 10 years. I have absolutely no interest in it at all. I might have Netflix, and I like Netflix because you can just put on something when you want to watch it.
Yeah,
if I want to watch something, I will find it online. But generally, I just don't want information and voices coming out. I can't bear it. And the voices are very important as well, like tone of voice, pitch, how long they're speaking for. So, I mean, I think I became super aware of it over the last 2 years. I could just be on the train. I mean, I have earphones I put in, and my lovely partner's just bought me some amazing earphones that just block out everything.
Oh, that's brilliant.
You get those earphones where you can hear your music, but you can hear everything else.
Yes, yeah. Like my earphones.
Hear anything else. So if I'm on the train or the bus, and someone behind me speaking, it's like they're not technically doing anything wrong, but in my mind,
you get angry, don't you?
Really wrong, yeah. And it's like being able to be really conscious of your mind and your chatter and what it's telling you, and trying to also keep that
calm yourself down.
Yeah, exactly. So I can hear my own voice in my head. It's quite a posh voice. That's like, how dare you? It really is. It's like, do they not understand how highly annoying they are?
Irritating. Yeah.
And then it starts swearing. You're just like, oh my God, switch off. And all they're literally just having a conversation. I try and remember, as a young person, I was loud. I'd sit on the back of the bus and I'd be chatting loudly with my friends, and that's fine. But now I'm like, 40 odd, and they're, two people are just having a conversation, but I don't want to hear you on the phone. I don't want to hear you playing your music out loud on your phone. I don't want to hear about how your day's gone, what you're buying for dinner. I don't want anything.
In fact, I don't actually want to even hear you breathe.
Yeah.
That's offensive.
But I know it sounds like super. I know it sounds really irrational and whatever, but it does feel irrational in my mind. And it's like, the more I become aware of how it makes me feel inside, it's like a rage. It's like a rage inside it. It's like, it's irrational. It's not right. So sometimes I might, get up and I'm like, huff, or I'll just move and get myself out of that situation if I haven't got any earphones. But I have to remind myself, they're just being human in a human world. And it's actually you that's the problem.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. As far as I'm concerned.
Situation.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, just remove yourself from the situation. And when I had my diagnosis, the lady said to me, well, what it is it's sensory overload.
Yeah.
And being able to find yourself in a situation where when you start to feel this irritability inside, and you find these exit situations, that's just one example where you can get yourself out of those situations where you don't have to deal with it. But it literally feels like, even being on the bus and like we were speaking on the phone, I could hear the
yeah.
If I'm on the bus and I can hear it, for me it just sounds so loud. And like, why is everything so ridiculously loud, and why is no one else affected? Why is no one else reacting to it?
Yeah.
And you start to think, oh my God, is it just me? It's really irritating.
But this is why I said to you, I'll mute every time we get to the stop, mainly because it irritates the hell out of me. So I'm like, for example, on the train going to church this morning, there was somebody that was playing something on their phone. I think it was Michael Jackson. And I did give her a bit of a look, like, do you not have headphones?
Yeah, I say that all the. Did you ask them? I always ask.
I was this close. Like
Oh, yeah,
I was this close to ask it. But I'm thinking it's interesting. It's very interesting. I mean, I can so relate to like everything.
But it
Everything.
feels like it's not just like an annoyance. It's like like an offence.
Yeah.
It's the
like
first time I'm really saying this. I know how it makes me sound, and it's like, and there's other things I'm maybe not going into, but it feels like, oh, why do you not understand how utterly rude it is? And I do. I've asked. I turn around and I say, sorry, and I try and say it really nice. Like, sorry, darling, do you have any headphones at all? And most of the time they're really nice and good about it, but it's. I just find it so irritating.
I do, but it is bad manners, though. It is bad manners.
Yeah. But breathing heavily, not so much bad manners. So you got to find where the line is.
But it depends if it's near my ear. In which case, it's like
or the chewing. Oh my god! There's certain noises for me as well that I can't. I was talking to my partner about it, and I can't tell you why it's annoying, because some noises are fine, others aren't. But it's clicking.
Yeah, it's the sensitivity to noise.
Yeah, and whistling. I can't. I feel like this. I just can't explain the feeling.
I liked whistling. I found it was a great achievement as a child. I've never been able to do that thing, which really annoys me every time someone does it, because it just shows me something I can't do. But I loved whistling. Don't worry, be happy.
If you're cheering, whistling, I can deal with that. But it's like whistling a tune, and then you feel like you're the irritable, miserable one. All this time I thought I was miserable. Somebody behind me might be just whistling a nice,
I'm going to send you a voice. I'm going to send you a voice note.
Oh no, please don't.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Be happy.
God, and footsteps behind me. Oh God, don't. Just things like that. Oh.
Don't worry. Be happy.
Singing is all right. Whistling, no need. Whistling should be cancelled.
Sorry, say that again.
Whistling should be cancelled.
No, it can be very soothing. It can. Don't worry. Well, I'll send you that voice note.
No, sorry. Sorry. That's the one thing. Our friendship will be over.
But Danny, the one thing that I wanted to ask you about as well is, now obviously everybody knows that Conscious Dreams published my book. Guys, if you're watching and you haven't yet shared this broadcast, please do, because I know how many people have shared the broadcast, because I can check, and only 4 of you. So please do the honors. It would be really great if you could. As I said, I've had my account restricted because I'm such a naughty girl, and for that reason, not a lot of people are seeing what you guys are seeing and what they should be enjoying that you're enjoying. So please do share, and especially for people that are parents. And I know that the whole show is not just about this condition that Danny was diagnosed with, but I'm also Tripty. How are you doing? Now, I was in school with Tripty as well, but from the age of about 5. I don't know what's gone on today, but it's like I've got all my primary school people on here, which is really lovely.
Oh,
it's so nice. Yeah, that we're only how old are we now? Like 25, 26? Shut up. Over a certain age. I mean, I don't hide my age, but other people don't appreciate having their age being told on social media. So I'll keep stum. But yeah, it's really lovely that you guys are still connected. It's great. So yeah, I think what was I saying?
You tell me how you're going to send me a whistling voice note.
Oh no, I'll find one extremely irritating that will really make your head go before I do. But on a serious note, Danny, I think I was saying everybody knows that you published Conscious Dreams Publishing, which is your publishing house, published my book, Not This Widow. And I always say it's such a shame you never published my first book, because the first people were absolutely awful. I mean, they gave it all of this. They were absolutely disgusting. I'm sorry, but they were horrible. They were extremely expensive. And I did not get what I paid for at all.
Sorry to hear that.
The people, it was really awful. So it's my one big regret in life. But I think where I realized that I personally had made the right choice was the care that I was given.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just interested to know, you know, that aside, why did you write your first book, and what made you set up your own publishing house?
My first book. Interestingly enough, my first book actually wasn't meant to be Mr. Wrong, which was my first book. It's a children's fantasy novel that I still want to get out, and I've just actually, after 10 years, have finished my second draft, and it's ready to go. I'm happy with it now.
Excellent.
But my first book was called Mr. Wrong, which is a collection of stories written by women who've encountered this infamous Mr. Wrong. But it's also more than that. It's tongue in cheek. It's so it's a collection of stories of dating disasters, ranging from women who've overcome, you know, abusive, toxic relationships. It's stories from men as well, and success stories too. And it's about exploring, examining, and, you know, really delving into limiting belief systems that we have about ourselves, relationships, men, love, what we've been taught. So it goes deep into those kind of thought processes behind what we attract, because I believe that what we attract is a result of our thinking.
Oh, absolutely.
And then that, you know, it's empowering to know that what we attract into our life is actually the result of our choice, as opposed to things happening to us. Right.
Yes.
So often we like to think, oh, this has happened and that's happened and this man's done this or this woman's done that. And it's like, okay, if this person or different people with different names keep doing the same thing, what's happening inside? It's internal, right?
I completely agree with you. My first book was very similar to what you've just said.
So it's about how we can really explore and examine ourselves, and make better choices and take responsibility for those choices. Looking at the power of forgiveness, the power of values, the power of understanding our value and our worth, looking at some of our past stories and trying to work through why we're maybe repeating patterns. So there's humorous parts, but there's some very serious parts in there as well. The power of forgiveness just not of people who have hurt us, but people maybe who have hurt us in our childhood, or you know, forgiving ourselves. And that's often a step that we always forget, you know. We work so hard on forgiving all these people, but we forget to say, oh.
And you're absolutely right. I don't think you're right. A lot of people don't realize that there are times where you have to forgive yourself and let it go.
Exactly.
And because it manifests different from when you are holding unforgiveness towards someone else, we kind of miss it and don't realize that that energy is guiding our life in a particular direction that isn't serving us. But Danny, I said to you that my next book, the book that I was writing or am writing, is on forgiveness.
Do
you know what? I'm going to try and get it done.
You are going to get it done.
I am going to get it done. I was hoping to have it ready to launch actually next month, but other things happened. You know, I was selling
its time.
And you know, but going back to the issue of forgiving oneself, you're right, because especially when it's a situation where something involves somebody else and we fail to take responsibility because we feel guilty. And therefore, we kind of speak to ourselves in a language that we wouldn't necessarily speak to if it was someone else. So I always say to people, be kind. If, let's say you, Danny, you're in a relationship and you made some mistakes, I'm not going to call you up and say, Danny, you're so stupid. How could you do a thing like that? That was just ridiculous. You should have known better, unless I'm not a friend. Why do we say these things to ourselves? How could I be so stupid? That's not the language. And I don't think we realize that that compassion is not an external thing. You have to show compassion to yourself. So, you know, I just find that it's very interesting, some of the topics that you touch on that aren't the usual things that people speak about from that perspective. When you talk about the power of forgiveness, you know, it just amazes me how similar the language is, because it is a superpower to be able to forgive. People tend to think, if I'm forgiving you, I'm doing you a favor. No, I'm not.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think what kind of changed the game for me, I think probably over lockdown and last year, I started to look at all these kind of patterns in my life and realize a similar theme of, spanning over a long period of time. So let's give an example, not necessarily saying this is me, but let's say it is. Or let's say it's you watching. Think about, what someone may have done, or you feel they may have done. Write it down. And it was, okay, I forgive you for not being able to meet a need that was important to me, or I forgive you for abandoning me at the moment I really needed you. Okay, how can you flip that back to yourself? Because it all goes back to self. You're not doing it for that person, you're doing that for yourself. But what can you do to actually take full responsibility and accountability? Because that's where the key is. Okay, I abandoned my own self because I put something in somebody else, expecting them to meet a need that I haven't met myself. So I forgive myself for abandoning my own needs because I put that in somebody else's hands that I knew wasn't able to meet that.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? So we forgive that person, but you've got to forgive yourself for putting your own soul, your own self in that position to be abandoned to start with. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I forgive myself for allowing myself to be rejected in the most painful way. And when I kind of wrote all these things down, I was like, it just switched the lights on. It's not about them. I don't care whether they're going on and doing it. Obviously, I do care that they may be hurting someone else in that same way. I can't take responsibility for that. But I can take responsibility for the fact that I put myself in a position to trust somebody who broke my trust and betrayed me. So I forgive myself for putting myself in that position. And I will never, ever put myself in that position again, knowingly.
But that is so empowering. But so many of us are not ready, willing, or able to have that conversation, because it's so much easier to say, well, I'm blaming you, Danny. You hurt me. It's your fault. It's like you put 100% responsibility of your life, as you're saying, on someone else's shoulder and expected them, as you're saying, to come up with the goods when you couldn't. How does that even make sense?
Exactly.
But so many of us do it. And I think it's probably from a place of fear, because holding a mirror, and I say this all the time, holding a mirror up to oneself is not easy.
Scary.
It is scary because there's nowhere to hide.
And there's a lot of grief that comes with that as well. It's like, sorry, it's easier to be a victim and for it to be someone else's fault, because then it's like we never take responsibility for the story. But when we have to look at ourselves and say, oh my God, you detach yourself from yourself and you imagine like you're a higher sense of yourself and you put yourself through this long ass situation that was painful when you knew it was going to be painful, let's say a quarter of the way in.
Of course.
But
you continued going.
You continue going. And it's hard to say, oh my, I allowed myself to go through that. It's a grieving process of being able to grieve doing something to yourself that you could have prevented, but once you get through that and on the other side, it's beautiful.
But part of the grieving process is acceptance.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just in denial. You're at the denial stage.
And you meet someone else who does the same thing because you haven't learned.
So it's one of those things where you've got to come to a place where you're prepared to say, I made some mistakes. I know it's going to be hard. I actually don't know how I'm going to resolve this, but I'm actually going to put one foot forward and see where this journey takes me, because the number one thing to do is to make the decision to want to be better and to heal.
Yeah.
The problem that we also have in the society in which we live now, it's so dishonest. Honesty and integrity are virtually non-existent.
Yeah.
You are not allowed to be honest about anything.
Yeah.
So where we are feeding into this whole thing of everything is fine, everything is great, we are all, happy as Larry, nobody is wrong, everybody is wonderful, and up here, we are lulling so many people into this pit and into this false sense of security. So if somebody's even wearing something that doesn't suit them, so long as they're happy, that's not the reality of life.
It's the thing as well, like talking back to the autistic spectrum, right? Do not ask me if something looks good on me, on you, if you do not
Oh,
want
what they hear the truth.
Because I'm very direct and straightforward. I've learned to cushion things, good, how they can do better. Sandwich, it's called. You say something positive, then you tell the truth, and then you say something.
Then you soften the blow.
I've had to learn that, especially being a teacher when you're writing reports. Your son can do really well.
There's no hope for him.
However, but I look forward to him being able to do X, Y, and Z again. When it asked me before, someone said, "Does my bum look big in this?" Yeah, it does.
Well, I've never asked that question.
Just straight up. Do ask me a question, and it's a direct. It's a very simple yes or no answer. And I used to not understand why people are upset with it. They've asked me something, and I'm telling them the answer that they've asked me to answer.
But I think these are the negatives, I think, of social media, where black is white and white is black, and there is no, it's so deceptive that everything is fine. Everything is fine. I mean, so I'll give you an example. I saw a video of this actress. I don't know who she was. All I know is that she was wearing this really lovely dress, and I thought she was 7 months pregnant. Turns out she wasn't pregnant. And that somehow was an issue.
Did you say to her, are you pregnant?
No, this was some famous actress. So everybody was commenting.
Right.
So I see this lady. She looks a little bit drunk because I wasn't quite sure, but she did look about 7 months pregnant, no exaggeration. So I had, read the comments, and there were people saying that, oh, well, how can you say that she looks pregnant, and whether her stomach is big or not, this is the stupidness, she should be able to wear whatever she likes so long as she feels good in it. That's fine. But it's also my right to say, but you look pregnant. Now, she did look pregnant. Where you can take it as a compliment, apparently the woman's in her 60s. I thought she was about 40 something. That's why I thought she was pregnant. I didn't think she wasn't, So I'm saying, okay, but if we even take your argument, then are we saying that there is something wrong with pregnant looking women? You can't have it both ways. So what really is the issue here? But the fact is she did look pregnant. Why are we lying and saying just because she wants to wear the dress, it makes it fine? Yeah, it is fine, but she looks pregnant. But, my point is, why are we afraid to tell the truth and afraid to call out something for what it is? And because of this, our young people coming up are living in this virtual world where the real world isn't like that. The real world isn't, I won't judge you by what I see, I will judge you by that. That's a lie. Otherwise, when we go to interviews, we wouldn't present ourselves in a certain way. We'd get up, and if we feel like wearing a pair of tracksuit bottoms and trainers, we'd rock up like that. But we're not being honest. And I think for as long as we have this thing where massaging of egos, when we have situations where we're having to look in the mirror, what do we see? We've been given a false impression of ourselves for so long, we can't even interpret that person looking back at us. Who are they?
I think if somebody, if somebody asked me if they look pregnant, then I would answer honestly. But I think I've learned to know now if
don't do that. Don't do that in real life.
No. But I mean, because I've been offered a seat.
Oh, I've done that one. It's so embarrassing.
I think it's like I over-explain myself as well to someone that's like, "Do you want to sit down?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to, but I'm not." I said, "Do you think I'm pregnant?" I didn't realize I was embarrassing her because I was like, "Oh,
yes, you were. You would have been."
And then I suddenly clocked, "Oh, she thinks I'm pregnant," and then you over-talk. I said, "Do you think I'm pregnant?" I was like, "No, I'm not pregnant, but I've just had a lot of carbohydrates over the last few weeks. I need to lose a bit of weight, but thanks for the sleep."
I've got a bit of wind. It happened to me on the train. I got up for this lady, and but it was so shameful, Danny. I got up for this lady, the Nigerian woman. She goes, do you think I'm pregnant? I'm not pregnant, so if my stomach is big, eh?
Oh no.
And the way she shouted, I didn't know where to put, but she laughed about it. I was so embarrassed. But something like that is different. I mean, I would never say, you look, I would never say that, but I actually, in all honesty, that video, I admired the woman because I thought, you look wicked. I actually thought she looked really good. So I was actually taken aback reading the comments, that she wasn't pregnant was actually in her 60s. I thought, well, what?
Wow.
You know,
60s and pregnant. It's a blessing for some.
well, yeah. I thought she looked 40 something though. I didn't think she did not look 60 nothing. She looked 40 something.
Did you get blocked? Can I ask you?
No, I didn't. I mean, I just basically gave my response to all the people saying, "How dare you say she looks pregnant?" I'm like, the woman looks pregnant. Stop the foolishness.
No.
She does look pregnant, but she also looks amazing. I said, take me for example. I said, maybe I come from Mars. I had no idea who this woman was. So for me, I still maintain that it's a compliment that people thought that she looked pregnant because she does not look 60 nothing at all. But you know, even that you're not allowed to be honest. We still want to lie to people and, you know, say that, no, that looks great. And I said, you guys would be a bloody nightmare going wedding dress shopping with a friend. Because every bloody dress they put on, your response would be, well, if it makes you feel happy.
Exactly.
Come on.
It's not about what makes you feel. If I'm asking you, am I hanging out in this dress? I want an honest answer. Otherwise, don't come shopping with me. I mean, I hate shopping anyway, but
so do I. I do everything online.
I like to go in and out. There's no faffing around.
Yeah.
I'm going in with one idea in mind. I'm gonna get that one thing. I'll try it on, maybe 2 other things, and it's like in out. I can't be. I've never been one of these people that enjoy. I do not enjoy shopping trips. I've never. Let's go shopping together. It's because it's like it's an in and out job, and I just don't understand the enjoyment around it. I don't enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same as you. Going to New York back in the day, nah. I was like, if you want a shopping list done, tell the man, don't tell me, because it ain't happening. It's not. I've never bought anything for anyone from the States before. I'm not doing it. But Danny, the other thing that I was really interested in, when you're talking about how you set up the publishing company, you've now set up a bookshop.
I have indeed.
Was it the same mindset or the same drivers that made you set up the bookshop? Because I remember you messaged me, said, oh, I set up this bookshop and I've done everything myself. You said, I wish I could find the message, I'd read it out. You said, I've set up the website, I've researched, and I'm sitting there thinking, wow, I don't have that kind of patience though.
See, I didn't think I did. What happened was I've been thinking about doing it for a while. So obviously, you know, one of our 8-year-old author got quite a lot of media press. She wrote a book called My Afro, and she was on BBC, ITV, Channel 5, all these other places. And when I spoke to all these different people, they were saying, oh, do you have somewhere? Not in that voice. I know I'm putting that voice on. But they'll say, oh, bookstores I'll speak to, or libraries. And I'll say, oh, where can we find like all of your books? And at that time, I was saying, well, everyone's on Amazon or Waterstones and the main
Barnes and Noble, and
some have their own websites. And but is there anywhere where we could see all of the books that you've published? Well, if you Google Conscious Genes Publishing and go onto this, you know, you might. But I thought, do you know what? I need to set up a shop. Number one, if you're buying books from Amazon, for example, authors get a certain amount of royalties because these third parties are buying their books at like 40% wholesale discount. So already there's, you know, their books are being bought at a low price. So therefore their royalties are going to be low minus the cost price. So I thought, okay, what can we do to kind of cut out these, keep the giants, but find a way that's more empowering for the authors and also supports Conscious Genes Publishing. And so I've been saying for a while, I'd really love to set up an online bookshop. And in my mind, this is another thing that happens, is that I get an idea for something. And sometimes it might feel so overwhelming that it's like, the only way I can really explain it to you is that all these tabs that open up on a computer, right? And, you know, where you overload the computer so much, all the tabs start closing down and the computer shuts down, right?
Yeah.
It's like Alt, Control, Delete. So whenever I thought about it, it was like everything clamps down in your mind and you just say, I just can't do it. It just becomes so, everything clamps down. So in my mind, I was thinking, I've published 160 authors. So I was thinking, God, I'm going to have 160 authors' books in my office or in a warehouse somewhere. How am I going to post them out? And then postage and packaging. And such a minor thing can become such a huge thing.
Yeah.
Where you just
barrier for not moving. Yeah.
Barrier. And you just don't do it. And you've got this complete mind block about it. And I've got this about I've had this about so many things. And I spoke to someone called V Roberts, who's a marketing
Oh, I know V. V's
expert. She's
excellent.
amazing. Had a little call with her, and she said, "You've made it so complicated. It's really easy. They post the books out. You take the orders. Go on to Shopify. I know you, Danny. You'll be able to work it out. Go on there. You can set it up. Get someone to do it for you. But just have a look at it." And I said, "V, I've got so many things to do. But now you've mentioned Shopify to me, something clicks on in my brain. It's like a light bulb." So I was like, "Oh, I'm going to cancel everything you have to do today." and you go into hyper focus mode.
Yeah.
So this is where ADHD comes into it, right? So I thought I couldn't possibly have ADHD, and the only reason I thought I might have ADHD was definitely when I went to university and school, was if I'm in a lecture. I'm not built for lectures. I can't sit down for a long period of time. Yeah. I've got to get up. I've got to move around. I'm like,
definitely.
I've got to sit on the edge.
I know,
my leg starts going, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't listen to what they're saying. I can tell you everything they're wearing, everything around them. I'm looking around at everything else, and I'm like, how's everyone just sitting straight and focusing? I just need to get out of it. And I feel trapped. And so I just thought, that's the only reason I may have ADHD. But apart from that, I'm very, very focused. I'm very focused. If I'm doing something, I cannot be interrupted. I don't answer my phone sometimes. I forget to eat when I'm so into something I'm doing. And when I had my diagnosis, she said, "No, you've got ADHD traits." And without going into all the other different bits, sticking on this one, she said to me, one of the aspects of being Asperger's or on the ASD spectrum and ADHD is it's not just about having this lack of focus on certain things. It's about going into hyper focus. So it's like you're going to the other extreme.
Right.
So when she mentioned Shopify, this light bulb kind of went on, and I knew that was hyper focus. I was like, oh God, now you've said it. I just cannot stop thinking about Shopify. Cancelled everything, got on it. And I just got intensely into understanding how it all works, analytics, blah, blah, blah. Emailed all the authors. As you know, you got your email. You're coming onto the shop soon.
Good.
Got all the books on there, did the design, worked out how to track all this stuff. Anyway, yeah, I did it all, set it up, and it came out. I launched it on Friday. Very excited about it. And the authors get
really good. I mean, I'm hoping that you're going to put the links. Conscious Dreams Publishing.
I will.
Conscious Dreams. Is it bookshop or bookstore?
Conscious Dreams Bookshop. Let me put it on now.
Yeah, that would be excellent. And also those watching to know that if you are looking to publish your book, do get in touch with Danny, because you obviously still do the 30-minute consultations, don't you?
Yeah, free 30-minute consultations.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what stage you're at. You might be thinking about writing a book. Maybe you've written a book, not sure where you're going with it. We also work with people who have written a book and maybe published it already, and they just want to help with marketing and the book strategy as well. Yeah,
it's really good. And you also you had something recently, I think you've had it before, where you've got like a weekender of book writing.
Oh, yes. Oh, well remembered, Dilys.
I remember everything. I remember everything.
You do. It is the 4th and the 5th of February. I've got a writer's weekend coming up in Barnet, in a beautiful forested area, where we help people who are thinking about writing a book or maybe halfway through, in terms of getting it written, working out who the audience are. My sister, who's a holistic health coach, she's going to be doing a transformational breath session as well. So yes, I can put those details in there too.
Yeah, please do, because you see, as you say, everybody has got a story, but it's how you structure that story for people to be interested in it. And I don't know whether do you think that just because somebody has written a book, that makes them an author, or somebody that authored a book?
Interesting question. What's your definition? Here we go. What's your definition of an author first, Dilys?
My definition of an author is somebody that has got more than one book in them and has the ability to be able to put their thoughts on paper in different ways at various times. So
Right.
for me, it's like saying, for example, the distinction between a singer and a musician.
Mm.
You may have sung one song and that's it, never sing again. You're just a singer. I mean, and I'm not being funny. Some people have written books. It's like a pamphlet. It's not really a book. You know, the font is like size 18 and it's on 6 pages. And just because it's in print, I personally think it's a bit cheeky, but I'm just being honest with you. So you have these people that say they're author. I'm like, look, you're not an author. You put something on paper once and you know that you could never replicate that. Do you see where I'm coming from? People might find this offensive, but I'm sorry. It is what it is.
Yeah.
That's just what I think.
Okay. So in my mind, I always had like there's a definition between a writer and an author. Whereas a writer would be someone you could write an amazing blog, or you could write, I don't know, a piece of poetry, or I don't know, even a piece of music, or a film, or a screenwriter. There's a difference between that and an author. So an author is someone who's published a book. But I do agree with you in terms of the quality of book, but there isn't quite a distinction there, is there, between, and it's a really hard one. I know exactly what you're saying. You'll have to come back to you on that one.
I mean, I read something that someone wrote, and they you know, actually we're friends on Facebook. The person doesn't live in England. I'm going to be very vague. I am not looking to be blocked or unfriended. And I read some of what they had written, and it was terrible. Even the grammar was all over the place. I mean, it was really bad. I'm thinking nobody could have proofread this nonsense. And so are we saying that the fact that it's just in print now qualifies you to be?
I get you. And this is the thing. It's like I'm in between the world of, you know, what I do, which is we're a hybrid publisher or self-published company where, you know, the author gets 100% royalties and their book is published. And I like to think it's to a professional standard. We don't publish everything. We make sure that it's in alignment with what Conscious Dreams is in alignment with. We have professional book editors, right? And then you have, you know, when I go to talks run by, let's say, traditional publishing companies, or, you know, London Book Fair or whatever, and they talk about vanity publishing. Okay, so in the old school way of seeing vanity publishing is anyone who's basically self-published a book, right? We know that getting a traditional publishing deal or getting that deal with an agent is really tough. I'm on that journey myself. You know, that fantasy book I was telling you about.
Yeah,
I'd love to self-publish it myself, and I will. But my ideal for this particular book, because of the genre, I would love for it to be published by, you know, a company like HarperCollins. But I know that I am one amongst thousands and thousands of people trying to get an agent. They get 270,000 entries per year, right? So I'm not going to turn down that deal. That's brilliant. But at the same time, I'm not going to not publish it myself because I haven't got that deal, right? But I will make sure that whatever I publish is to a high standard. Otherwise, I'm not going to bother at all, right? But there are companies out there who will, I call them printers, who will just print anything.
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons I set this up, because people, and, you know, when I was looking for a publisher myself, I was looking at a lot of these printers who were charging thousands.
Yes.
Didn't give a damn about the quality, didn't care whether it was edited. They took your royalties. You know, I've spoken to authors who don't even know what royalties they have. They know they've made sales, but have no idea.
Well, you're looking at one in my first book. You're looking at one.
It's horrendous. They know they sell books, but don't know how many. They can't track their sales. They don't know where their royalties are. And the publisher will just, the printer, will just print anything, right? And they've got no rights to it. Horrendous, absolutely horrendous. And so I understand where a lot of, you know, traditional publishers and people of that ilk talk about vanity publishing and, you know, self-publishers polluting polluting the literary
Yeah.
shelves or whatever, because
Mm.
technically you can write a 5,000 word ebook and you're an author, right?
Yeah.
Because you published a book. So if you look at the word author by definition, I need to look that up properly. But I mean, an author, in terms of how we see an author, is someone who's published a book, right? You publish something on KDP or Amazon as an ebook, 5,000 word, 10,000 word ebook, you're an author technically.
Mm.
But what is the distinction between an author and someone who's written a really high quality book? There isn't that distinction as yet. So I'm not. I don't know how we could label it other than, a terrible director. Think about films. There's so many films that have been directed and they're terrible, and so many amazing films that have been directed. They're still directors, aren't they?
Yes.
Terrible directors, great directors.
But I guess so. But at least they have filled a certain criteria that you have no doubt that it is still a film. They've ticked the boxes of what's required. Do you see where I'm coming from? And that's subjective. Yeah. I don't think writing a book is necessarily subjective, because grammar is good grammar. Bad spelling is bad spelling. That's not subjective. That's fact. And what I saw of this person, I mean, it was. I mean, I was like, wow.
What would you call them, Dilys? What would your distinction be?
I would just call them people that are trying a ting. This is what I would call them. Trying a ting. Because as far as I'm concerned, say again?
A TAT.
Yeah, tat. No, I would. So I'm just reposting because I just realized what your Constant Streams publishing website and stuff went in a private chat. So I'm reposting it so that people can see, and then also check out the Writers Weekend, which I think is really important. And this is what I'm saying, Danny. Again, it goes back to people not being able to be honest.
Mm.
So because you've written a book, I have to tell you that it was good. I'm not saying the part of the enjoyment of the book is subjective.
Yeah.
Someone can read Not This Widow and think this is the worst thing they've ever read. Someone can read Predator or Prince and think I really didn't like that for whatever reason. But what you can't take away from me is the fact that I met a certain standard. The information is factual. That can't be disputed because I'm speaking facts. I am talking about people's experiences. I am explaining things that has its roots in psychology and coaching and counseling. You can't disagree with those things because they are scientifically proven. But because we can't be honest, everybody in this world, when you don't agree with them now, you're a hater.
Mm.
So even though what you've written is trash, I cannot tell you that you need to look at that because I'm just being a hater. It makes no sense. So the opportunity for people to be able to go and perfect their craft, because again, we're in an era where everybody's all on the same level. The world now is a level. There is no respect of people that have paid their dues and have put in the hard graft and have earned their credentials. Now people can buy credentials. And so therefore, that respect is not there. So you can't spell and you're using 20 size font on 3 pages. Now we are both authors. We are not. You're trying a ting. And so what I'm saying is that people should take the time to invest, to be humble enough to do their research, invest in themselves. Maybe your English may not be that good. Dictate your story. Give it to somebody to transcribe for you. Do you understand? That can actually correct your grammatical whatever, if maybe your spoken English is not good. But we have to be honest with each other to say, you have a great idea, but this is the back work that you're going to have to do. I'm very honest with myself. That's just how my brain is wired, because I get embarrassed very easily. And because I'm so brutally honest, I will not allow you to come and tell me something I'm doing wrong when I could have told myself. And then I have very trusted people in my circle. Like whenever I've started writing a book, Danny, I will send you snippets. Danny, what do you think of this? Like, you know, the book on forgiveness and the 365 ways to know that you're special book that, you know, that I'm writing. And I will say, tell me what you think. So that at least I know that I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
But we don't do that. We just put any nonsense on paper and say, can you publish it for me? So
the sales, the sales will say, I'm not saying anything.
No, you can't, because you're a publisher. So you can't be, but I'm trying to help you here. So that anybody who is watching and you have only 3 words in your vocabulary, don't go and worry my friend. She only wants to just, but it means, no, but Danny, what it means is that people should find themselves at your writer's weekend. Even if you're 100%. Good, be better.
It's not easy to write a book. I mean, there's some people who come to us and they are naturally gifted writers. They have a fantastic book, a fantastic story. We've got amazing fiction writers, for example. We've got amazing people like yourself. You're a great writer in terms of your book, Not This Widow, how you've written your book, the structure, how just the depth that you've gone into, beautifully written. Right? I'm a writer by craft. That's my love. That's my gift. That's what I've come here to bring to the world. You know, whether it's through books, whether it's through poetry. I started off as a poet, right?
Yeah.
And you know it. You know, the posts I write, everything, I express myself better through the written word than spoken.
Yeah.
Spoken. See what I mean? Spoken. You know, I was never able to express myself vocally, really. It's only until I sort of became a teacher where, you know, you had to talk. And then I started doing assemblies that I became confident public speaking. Because you can just be yourself. For me, I can be myself totally with kids. There's no.
But you hosted my Not This Widow book launch.
Yeah.
It was very natural.
But people, before that, like in my, like, let's say from 20 and below, I would never have seen myself doing that. I really struggled to express myself vocally, right? And to express myself, especially in terms of emotions, I would write. So I used to write long ass letters to like partners. This is how I feel. I dumped someone at age 15, and I actually expected the reply, and it's like, my life has been turned upside down. Will Smith, Fresh Prince. You know, everything's come tumbling down on me, and I think it's time we bring our relationship to an end. I've slowly discovered I've got feelings for my ex, you know, really poetic.
Yeah.
If I saw him face to face, I'd be sitting there going like this. You all right? Yeah, me too. But I dumped him via letter, right? And I thought it was beautifully written, and I genuinely expected a response. But I mean, I got myself. Oh,
Danny, you're frozen. Is that?
Oh, it stopped. I don't know. I'm still here. Hello. Oh dear. You frozen?
I was frozen.
Oh, you're back.
Yes. You're back. It has never happened before, but there you go.
Okay. So I was just saying, you know, I'd be able to beautifully express myself through writing. But then we've come across authors who can beautifully express themselves vocally, especially a lot of our dyslexic authors, and then write with a writing coach who would sit with them and write out, or they would dictate. I mean, I could never do a book in this way. I like the feeling of having a pen in my hand. I'm old school. Pen in my hand. I've only just started.
Do you actually write?
Well, my fantasy novel I wrote by hand. I've got it all books here.
Wow.
And it wasn't until like my late sort of 30s when I went back and did a revision. I typed it up, and then I don't write by hand now, but yeah, sometimes I do. But
I really hope this is not going to keep happening.
Mr. Wrong, I did on the computer here. But yes, I really do have a thing with writing by hand. But some people, they can just get their phones, talk into it, and speak elaborately, and then have it written up, or they use apps that, you know, translate it. I can't do that, but everyone's different, I think.
I've had to do that with both of my books, because I've had part of those books, people have told their stories, and I've intentionally asked them to just speak, because the books have been so emotional that I haven't wanted them to be contaminated by editing. Do you remember when I
remember,
not this video, I'm like, under no circumstances, unless it's a grammatical thing and it doesn't make sense, I don't want them touched.
Yeah.
You know, so, but I did find it difficult having to listen and type out. It's very tedious. It's really, really hard work. It's not, I don't think I'd do that this time in as much to do it myself. I'd pay someone to do it. It's hard work. But no, it's very, very interesting, you know, this whole thing of words and how we use them. And just exactly like yourself, words are very important. I'm exactly like you. I'm writing letters. If I really have something that's bugging me, I will express myself. Though I am very eloquent, I'm a public speaker as well.
Yeah.
I would like to, I like to write because it's also therapy for me. However, not this widow was not therapy for me. If anything, it was very traumatic, and it was like reliving trauma. It was terrible. But typically, writing is very therapeutic. Like I get a lot of anger out. Like if I'm writing to, you know, a partner, or it's better I write first.
No one wants the wrath of Dilys.
Do you want some of this?
No.
So yeah, I do find that it really does. It really does help. But yeah, I think this whole thing about authors, I've always meant to ask you that question. You know, what do you feel constitutes an author? Because I pick up some books, I'm like, but this is a brochure. You know, it's not a book. You know, and I kind of feel a bit irritated because I'm thinking, man, when you're sitting there writing books over 50,000 words and having to structure things and look at the flow of what you're writing and doing your research, and yeah.
And that's why I think I'm trying to soften what I say. It's why we have a submission process. You know, we get a lot of stuff, and sometimes it's really honest. It's important to be honest. Yeah. It's important to have integrity. I could take someone's money. Yeah, we'll publish this. Well, I don't want to. I'm not here. I love writing. I do this because I love writing. I love literature. We're not here just to publish anything. I'll point you in the direction of Author House.
Yeah,
all of these places.
Will take anything. They're like the publishing hose. I'm sorry.
You said it. You said it.
But they are. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times they contacted me from before, and it's like there's no. Oh, hi, Charlize. How are you doing? Charlize is watching from Texas. And I saw someone else. Charlize is amazing. I've actually met her in person. She came to London for a bit. And there was somebody else that was on here. I think it was Temi Tokpet from Nigeria. So guys, if you're watching, please do share. Charlize, you're going to live long because I was thinking about you just the other day. So forgive me for not reaching out, which I definitely will do this week. So yes, Danny, I know it sounds a little bit harsh, but again, I think people should want to invest in themselves. You want to write a book, no problem. You know, just like with me and my singing back in the day, I had a raw talent in being able to sing. But I remember the days where I would stand there with a microphone and you'd think that somebody, you know, was holding my family captive and saying, if you don't, you've got to sing to get them released. I just didn't look good on stage at all. But I had to invest in terms of doing the circuit, doing open mic sessions and doing this, that to perfect my craft. But you see that with writing, people just throw something on a piece of paper, I'm an author, because they're after the title more than the actual love of
it. Just goes on to this. If you want to do something, you've got to do it well. You have to do it well and to the best of your ability. And if it's not ready, it's not ready. So we'll point people in the direction of a writing coach, or we might give advice or feedback and how it can be better. And sometimes people just don't want to hear that. They just want it published and out there. So, well, we're not for you then.
Definitely not. And there's a reason. I mean, they're a bit silly though. Conscious dreams, like conscious, that there is a bit of a hint in the name. Do you know what I mean? But, you know, Danny, you know me, I'm going to tell it how it is. I didn't get your sandwich thing. Yeah, I just had the starter.
I know, you're just straight in, like, straight into the
Hey,
jungle.
Yvonne Michelle, how are you doing, sweetheart?
Yvonne, hey.
Lovely to have you. We need to, I think I need to get Michelle on this show as well. But yeah, like I said, the era in which we live is not helping people. We want things like yesterday. When maybe if you spend that little time in investing, I know there's people that come to you and it's like they just want the book out, when it's like, well, come let me mentor you. Come, let's do this stuff together. And you will see the benefit, because you'll pick up that manual or whatever it is and think, wow, is this really my work? Everybody's gifted in different ways. I naturally am a writer. Like yourself, that's why I said I think we need to speak off air. As a kid, I would just read encyclopedias.
Yeah, me too.
You sure we weren't separated at birth?
Maybe.
You're probably my twin. I would read encyclopedias. That to me was enjoyment, because I love knowledge. I just like
me too. Yeah.
But I always wanted to do things well. So at the age of 8, I was reading books for like 14-year-olds. A lot of them were crime, mystery, that kind of stuff, things that you had to figure out, psychological things, and I loved that. But I always took pride in whatever it was I was doing. So I kind of find it difficult to understand how people don't want to do things properly. And something like a book that is going to be in print forever and ever, amen, why would you not want to make that investment? So for anyone that's watching, I think if you really do want to publish a book and you're really serious, make that investment in yourself and do that. I'm a weird person. There's things that I've been doing for many, many years. I just go through the formality to give me the right to say, like, for example, being a life coach. I have always coached people my whole life. I spent over $4,000 to train just to get that tick beside my name. But it's something I knew that I was good at doing from feedback and how people would naturally gravitate towards me for that purpose. But never stop investing in yourself. And why I love your company, and like I said, my first book was a very important book, very similar to Mr. Wrong in certain ways, but in terms of women being able to hold a mirror up to themselves, being able to look, do some introspection, look at the starting point. So with my book, it's a little bit different in as much I look at the girl child. What did you witness as a girl child with your mother and her relationship with your father or not your father? How did that impact you? What became the blueprint of relationships for youth? It was an important book. Mm. So speaking to the publishers who pretended to be so interested, would do this. The moment they got that $5,000, that was it. The moment that £5,000 hit their account, that was it. And then I have Conscious Dream Publishing at the worst time and point of my life, with a not a well thought out desire to publish the book on the anniversary of my late husband. It wasn't well thought out, Danny. It was harebrained. Mm. And I remember we went out for a nice meal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, how long do I have to write this book? And it's like, well, if you want it published by the 21st of January, then I'm going to have it by September. We met in June.
Good memory.
I remember. You had your book.
Yeah.
But it was harrowing for me. It was hell. What I remember of the process was you constantly telling me, it's okay. But Dilys, if you can't do it, it's okay. You weren't interested in getting my thousands in the bank. Mm. Don't get me wrong. You're running a business, like you don't want to get paid. But that was not your motive. What you were concerned about was me. Mm. And I have always appreciated that. And I think with what you do and the kind of people that write my genre of books, their stories are not nice. Mm. They are stories that have impacted their life in a way that's painful, is negative and has really required us to dig deep to be able to speak. So when we're telling these kind of stories that have broken our souls, to be with people that are just concerned with a paycheck, it completely disrespects and invalidates us as people for a time. So if I have never thanked you, thank you so much for you and your team. It was hard. Danny, I was ill writing that book. I was ill. I was, even to proofread. You remember, we had a bit of a problem with the proofread. It made me sick. In the end, I said, I can't proofread it anymore. Just publish the book. But, it's important that, people understand, how we come across people and the role that they play. I don't even know how we became friends. I can't even remember. But I do remember, that process. And I remember being where was I? I was in the Canary Islands because I couldn't bear being here at Christmas. And I remember sitting on the bed and going through the book. And, I remember very, very, very clearly, I think it was either on the 1st or 2nd of January. And you said to me, look, if you can't do it. And I said, that's not an option. I have to do it. But I never was made to feel bad, or that if I did decide to give up, I didn't feel like, oh my God, I'm just grateful, So for me, I feel if somebody wants to write a book and you have a story to tell, I'm not saying, I know you do, fiction and all this kind of stuff, but I'm saying if you have a story to tell, that's a story that comes from here, then I couldn't really, in all good conscience, recommend anyone else.
Thank you.
Yeah.
People are important. I remember I lost my friend. I think I found out a few days after Christmas.
I remember.
A few days after Christmas, totally unexpected, and that kind of set the chain of everything really. And I just thought, oh my gosh, that I'm dealing with grief now, and I'm reading about your book and grief. I could get a fragment of how you felt, and it wasn't a partner. And so, of course, for me, it's about the person. When I first wrote my book, setting up this publishing company wasn't about. I never had it in mind to set up a publishing company. I never had it in mind to set up a publishing company to make money. I had it in mind to publish my own books. I wanted to have an impact on other people who may have gone through what I'd gone through. The book that I wrote, even though it's tongue-in-cheek and it's got funny bits, came from a deep level of trauma. And I had to do a lot of self-discovery myself and a love for wanting to help people. And so after, obviously, that book came out, helping other women mainly who felt like they weren't being heard and they had their stories that they wanted to share. I was doing that for free as a labor of love. And then I realized, hold on a second, I love teaching. I love literature. Why not make this a business? I actually really enjoy working with people. I feel a great sense of purpose and pride in helping people to get their stories out to impact others. So like you say, for me, it was never about, it's got to be done. I know what it's like to have something that's so important to you and so deep in your heart. And also I understand the impact of feeling pressured. I never put pressure on anybody. I have clients that I've worked with and I can get a sense of, maybe through what they say or their email. And this is another thing that annoys me, going back to, being diagnosed. A lot of people said to me, oh, I never would have thought you were on the spectrum. You're so empathetic. It's such a one-dimensional way of looking at people on the ASD spectrum, right? I have got huge levels of empathy, even more so. I'm a highly sensitive person, right? And one thing we need to remember, or we need to understand, if we don't know, is that people on the autistic spectrum have been diagnosed only through the not experimentation, but only through the, I don't know the word I want to use, the analyzation of boys, not girls. Doesn't look at how it affects girls. And when I got my diagnosis, there's certain...
I read that, yes.
You remember? And it's like a
Yes.
quotient. So you do one,
Yes.
which is to do with like how your mind processes things. So I can see patterns, sequences. I've got certain gifts and really random things like I can remember chains of numbers, conversations, pictures and tones, patterns, all of that stuff, right? So that was one test, and then the other one was about empathy. And it was like, oh, okay, you don't meet that criteria, it's slightly above. And then she said, but please note that these tests have been only tested on how it appears in males, not girls. So therefore, we are almost still defined by how it presents itself in boys. So there's still so much more research that needs to go into this. And so a lot of people are like, you're really, when I've met you, you've come across as really empathetic. And it's one of the things that I don't want to be weaponized against me. You know, if you say, oh, I'm on the spectrum, people who maybe don't understand may kind of jump to these stereotypes of, oh,
Definitely would.
meltdowns. No, I become overloaded and it's internalized. I might go home and cry because there's been so much information and everything kind of thrown on me, or I might get overwhelmed, but I don't, have a temper tantrum or start throwing things around the room. Yeah. And I've got huge levels of empathy, right? And I don't think I lack social skills, although I am quite direct and sometimes quite blunt. And
yeah, but many people fall in that category.
Exactly. And growing up, that's always just been my personality. People who know me, that's who I am. It's not a label, so to speak. I don't like small talk, but again, that could be attributed to being on the ASD spectrum, but it's also my personality. It's too much information. I don't want to know about your washing machine broken down.
Yeah,
I love you, but I'd like to have, my mind just filters out the things that are irrelevant. It sounds horrible, but it's just the way of coping, right? So again, going back to stereotype, is I have huge levels of empathy, especially being somebody who's a very sensitive person. I hate to feel under pressure, and I know what it feels like to be under pressure. Again, going back to those, like the computer and the tabs crushing down. Yeah. I can feel it in other people when with the kids I work with. Yeah. I can feel when they're getting to that boiling point or it's too much for them. And I have no way about saying to them, you know what, put your pen down, put your head down for a minute, or take your blazer off. Can I have a walk around? You're not allowed to do that, give them a note to walk around. But
the thing is,
or stand up, or do you need a movement break? Do you need to walk around? Because you sense when people need to have that time out, and you can't put people under pressure. And
but that's emotional intelligence, really, isn't it?
Well,
it is. That is emotional intelligence. And that's what I'm saying, that, I think it was a blessing for you, even though I know as a young girl, it was difficult because there's all these things going on and you can't quite put a label on it. But personally, having gotten to know you without there being any labels other than Danny Bleckner, the publisher.
And weirdo.
No, I've never actually been.
You call me in my inbox, I'm really joking.
I don't want to know that I call you in the inbox. I really will be banned completely from Facebook. But, I think it's been better because when I did the write-up and I was talking about, identity and, the fact that your father was Jewish, born to a black, Jamaican mother. I think as a mixed race child as well, it was probably another layer of, well, where do I fit in? Because society is saying, well, actually, you're in that box. You're thinking, well, I kind of feel like I'm in these two or these three. And, who are you to tell me who I am?
Everything and nothing all at the same time. I remember I got to that conclusion once. So, I mean, growing up, I was just me. Do you know what I mean? I didn't, and again, putting gender into it, if you want to throw that in there, I didn't fit in with the girls because I wasn't graceful. They like doing the banana rama dancing. And I love a dance. Don't ask me to do a coordinated dance. So don't ask you to remember shizzle because I won't. All right. And they're all like, and I was like the least graceful person you'll ever meet. Right. Rough and tumble. I love climbing trees. I love digging. I like dirt. I like nature. That was my thing. No one was really interested in that. And then I thought, okay, let me play with the boys. And I'm playing football, but I'm like catching the ball in my hands. And I just remember being shouted at, handball, get off. And so I'd find like the people on the outskirts, what was called the odds and sods, get them to join my club. I set up my own club called the Helping Club. We'll go around and help people who are like, marginalized or on the side. So I never felt like a need to fit in. I never felt out of place. I always felt like I'm doing my own thing, and whoever wants to join in with that, that's fine. And then I'll join in with everyone else and the things that I like. So I never felt any kind of sense of isolation. I just was interested in everyone, but I also knew when I wanted my own time, and I knew the things that interested me, and tried to get everyone else involved in it, even if they didn't care. I had a club called the Skeleton Club, where this is really I found here's one story, right? So I found the skeleton of a frog in school. Right?
Ew.
I know, it's horrible. I call it's a girls' school at this point, right? So I call the girls, like, girls, look what I found. Look. Like, one of them was like, oh, wow, amazing. Oh, it stinks. They all buggered off. And I was like, oh, what's wrong with them? Never for a moment did I think, oh, they think I'm weird. I just thought, oh, they're weird. Why are they not interested in this? Picked up the frog skeleton, walked down to the staff room, back in the days where they were all smoking in the staff room.
Yeah.
And I genuinely just thought there'd be a real interest there. I'm knocking on the door. And I asked to speak to the biology teacher. Like, hello, is Mrs. Young there, please? Smoke coming out there. Oh, she'll be out in a minute. Is it important? Yeah, it's really important. 20 minutes later, she comes out, reeking of cigarettes. And she's like, oh, yes, Daniela, what's wrong? She's like, look at this. What are you doing? Go and put it back in the bag. Go wash your hands. And I just thought, in my mind, I'm like, what's wrong with her? She's got the problem, not me. And another time I found it as well, and I bought it I put it in a big container.
Knowing you probably still got it in your house, haven't you, Danny? Go on. Show us your kitchen.
I put the leech in this little container. I think it might be like a little plastic container, right? And I thought, I'll put it in the classroom. Want to go out and play, and I'll come back and see it at break time, and the teacher will be really excited. Got back in there for lesson, right? Leech is gone. I'm like, oh no, there's a leech gone. What's going on? And one of the twins, there's these two ginger twins, and they were always ill, bless them. She started screaming, oh, Miss, I got a leech. I was like, oh, there it is. I did not understand why I'm getting into trouble. Like, for me, it's like everyone else had why are they so upset about this leech that's just being a leech? Do you know what I mean? So I didn't feel a sense of oddness until they started to tell me that I was, what's wrong with you, kind of thing.
I think we really have to take our time with our children, Really. For me, I think if there's my one takeaway from today's conversation, apart from the fact that don't try a thing about the book. Yeah. Apart from that, I think my other big takeaway is we have to really be very in tune with our children.
Yeah.
And you being a fine example of breaking the myths of the limitations that I think sometimes when these diagnoses is given, really is given negatively. I don't think the diagnosis is given in a positive way. It's like all the things, I mean, the hint is in the name.
Yeah.
Keyword. You're calling it a disorder.
Well, what was great when I got my diagnosis, the woman that I spoke to, it was done privately. She made me feel so positive about it. She said to me at the end, she said, and no one's ever spoken to me in this way. And I always knew, it took me years. I've wanted to do this for years because I've known for a long time. But to get the diagnosis was like a kind of affirmation, a confirmation, or a real validation in a way.
Yeah.
We need validation, but a sense of, okay, what I thought was right. But she said to me, and I felt so completely at ease speaking to her, even talking about odd things that we haven't spoken about just now, like maybe wearing the same clothes repetitively because I've had a good experience wearing this particular shirt, so I've got to wear it in like 3 or 4 days in a row. I know it sounds weird, but being able to say these things to her and not feel judged.
Yeah.
And she said to me, I think you're fascinating. I think that I'm so amazed at how you've adapted your life and you've created all these like ways to manage certain things that, I'm happy to do this report for you, and you can take it to an employer or whatever. I don't think I will, but she said the only reason that I'm writing this up for you is that you've had to survive in this world for so long, adapting and molding to certain expectations and sort of cutting off pieces of yourself or masking parts of yourself. It's about time that side of the world need to understand how you work as well. And she said, I think your mind, just speaking to you, she said, I think your mind is fascinating. I think you're amazing. And everything you've done, including a publishing company, is almost like a manifestation of being on the spectrum. And I'm happy to say that it probably is,
But this is what I'm saying, No, but this is what I'm saying, Danny. It is, because I'm thinking, that's what I'm saying, that if we had had this information before, or if you had been diagnosed as a child, they're not telling you that, one day you're going to be self-employed, you're going to be teaching other children, and you'll have your own publishing house, having published over, 100 and something authors, and also have your own, you're going to be an entrepreneur. No one's telling you that. You're already being told that you're going to be stacking shelves in the local Tesco's, coming, being a woman of color as well. Already there's limitation. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So I think it was a real blessing that, though you may have suspected, that you didn't know and didn't allow people to put you in a box. Because even with this information now, look at what you've achieved and what you have helped other people to achieve. Because you're in a field where it's not just about you. You're in a field where you are serving people. Now, don't get me wrong, typically that's not how a publishing house works. But like I said, there's a reason why you call it Conscious Dreams. Because there is a real, basically, you run a company for people that happen to write books. Not people that write books and happen to be people. And I think...
Got you. Yeah.
Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes you and Conscious Dreams just different. And I can say that because I have been a beneficiary of how you run your business. And I would challenge anybody to say otherwise. I mean, I know I saw something once where this lady was, I said, nah, you've got a problem, darling. Something all right with you. Something all right. Let's be honest here. You can't publish over nearly 200 people and you have one person saying something completely different. Mate, start it out. Start it out.
Love you, Dilys.
Well, you know me, I'm always very honest, Danny. That's one thing with like yourself. I'm a keep it real.
We get on.
Yeah. Just be honest, upfront, and but we're coming to a close now. Thank you so much for coming on Speak with Dilys today. I am so glad that I've had it. This has been one of my favorite interviews.
Oh, it
really has, because it's been eye-opening. And I think for those that do get to see this, those with children, and we all know somebody, even if they're not our own kids, just take your time that little bit more to just be a little bit patient with our children. And this is note to self. Let's not be too quick. This child is stubborn. This child doesn't listen. Let's not be too quick to do that, because our kids can't articulate. You couldn't articulate what was going on with you. All you knew was that you were like this. It's our job as the adults in the house, the grown people that feel we know everything. It's our job to be able to sit back and say, hold on a minute. This, that looks a little bit different, or it doesn't add up. Let me go and do some research. Let me speak to somebody that I can trust.
Something I forgot to say is that very noticeable things that I did when I was younger was some habits, right? So this dyspraxia is about I couldn't tell my left from my right. One of the reasons I don't drive, I find it very difficult to judge space and all that kind of stuff. But I had habits as well. I could not stop doing them. I could not stop it. I'm so glad of that. Can you imagine if I did this now? But one of them was like, I used to go, but it was and over again. So this is red raw.
I know someone that did that, and they used to get
over and over again. Same thing. Other things with my fingers. I do it a little bit. It's more subtle now. I can't really tell. Maybe that was my neck, maybe. But the worst one was, I mean, it is just the most obvious thing. But all I remember from it was that just not wanting to stop, but just not being able to stop. And I still can't tell you now why or how I stopped or how I started. Just in the middle of having a conversation. And the other one was that. So it's like it's called stimming, which I've realised I've just learned recently. So this was, I'd be watching TV and I'd go, or so you'd be talking to me, I'd just go. And it was about fitting in as many colours as I could in the triangle that would touch each other, but weren't
together.
I can't really explain. Yeah, that you could touching each other, but not the whole colour.
Yeah.
But anyway, in my mind, it made sense. And I'd love, I think I need a few months kind of processing what that was about or why, but I think it was either an anxiety thing.
Yeah, sometimes it's to release stress.
Yeah, it just relieved some kind of stress. But nobody said anything to me about it. Nobody mentioned it. They just thought, oh, you're a bit weird. I couldn't stop. Or standing, or having a photo taken and standing up really straight. So my mum told me once to stand up straight. So whenever I had a photo taken, it was like that. Probably why I've got
very literal in taking instruction.
Yeah,
I get that. No, we need to talk. But you know, yeah, I think it's been fascinating. It's been so interesting. I think it will help a lot of people, even for me. You know, it's been a great learning experience. So Danny, thank you so much for being on Speak with Dilys, and hopefully we will see you again very soon. Thank you, my darling. Take care, sweetheart.
Bye.
God bless. Bye-bye. Guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of Speak with Dilys. Amazing having Danny on this show. So have a wonderful week. I shall see you same time next week. We are now going to be on episode 11. So come the 18th of December, we will be done with Speak with Dilys series 6. So guys, have a wonderful week. Tasha, lovely to have you on here. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you, everybody. And I shall see you next week. God bless. Take care. And thank you for joining me for this special edition of Speak with Dilys. Once upon a time.